fuck, man. Oh my god, I have never seen this.
He is still alive.
From hikers disappearing in the woods to a ranger's encounter with a violently devoured body, this changes everything we know about Bigfoot. Let's dive in. Whispers in the wilderness. Nathan was woken up before dawn by the annoying ringing of a phone. This broke the stillness of the early morning. Still half asleep, he reached for the alarm, only to realize it wasn't that. It was his pager. The cold air creeping through the cabin walls was a harsh reminder that his first day as a seasonal ranger at Mount Hood National Forest had just begun. As he processed all this, Chief Daniels' voice came through the receiver, sharp and commanding. He was told to report to the office immediately. Nathan, still shaking off sleep, gave a quick reply, his voice rough from just waking up. He hurried to get dressed in his uniform, dark green pants, a heavy jacket, and his old, reliable boots, before grabbing his gear bag. The drive to the forest felt unusually quiet. The usual morning sounds of birds were muted under a thick layer of mist. The twisting road cut through dense woods, the towering pines casting long, ghostly shadows. As Nathan drove, unease settled in his chest. He'd heard the stories, rangers whispering about strange noises and sightings deep in the woods. Most dismissed them as myths, but something about today felt different. When Nathan arrived at the ranger station, he saw the rustic wooden building built between towering evergreens. The isolation of the place sent a chill down his spine. Snow still clung stubbornly to the ground, and the air was sharp and biting. Chief Daniels was already waiting at the entrance, his face weathered from years spent in the unpredictable wilderness. Daniels greeted him with a serious tone and wasted no time explaining the situation. There had been reports of strange animal activity in the northern part of the forest. Hikers had mentioned hearing eerie noises at night, and more alarmingly, a few people had gone missing. Nathan listened intently as the chief explained that 3 hikers had vanished the previous month. There were no signs of struggle, no tracks, nothing to explain their disappearance. The chief admitted they had no leads, but they were increasing patrols and surveillance. Nathan was assigned to cover the northern trails and told to report anything unusual immediately. He accepted a folder packed with maps, notes, and recent reports, promising to familiarize himself with the area. As Nathan unpacked his gear, spreading out his map, compass, and flashlight, an uneasy feeling crept over him. The dense forest outside the window felt like it was closing in, its towering pines whispering secrets he couldn't understand. Every little sound, rustling leaves or a snapping twig, made his heart race. Chief Daniels noticed Nathan's tension and asked if he was okay. Nathan forced a smile, blaming it on the new assignment and its weight of responsibility. The chief chuckled softly, reassuring him that he'd get used to it. The chief also told Nathan that Mount Hood was beautiful but unforgiving, and so urged Nathan to stay vigilant. By dusk, the forest had transformed. Shadows grew long, and the fading light turned the woods into a maze of darkness and uncertainty. Nathan made his way to the trailhead, the eerie silhouettes of the trees stretching endlessly as if following him. By now, the weight of his job was beginning to settle heavily on his shoulders, but he pushed it aside. He was trained for this, or so he told himself. The haunting begins. As night approached the forest, shadows deepened, transforming the landscape into a labyrinth of darkness and uncertainty. Nathan made his way to the trailhead. At this point, the fading light cast long, scary shadows of the trees. On top of that, the sounds of the forest changed as day gave way. Being a trained ranger, Nathan set up his base at a small clearing, marking the area with signs and setting the upper perimeter with his flashlight and radio. As darkness came, it got colder, and a thick fog began to roll in, hiding the path ahead. His breath formed visible puffs in the cold air as he reviewed the maps once more, planning his patrol routes for the night. But this was no ordinary night. All of a sudden, a distant howl echoed through the trees. Hearing this, Nathan paused, listening intently. The sound was haunting. It was not quite like an animal, but not entirely unnatural either. It was maybe a coyote, Nathan thought, trying to rationalize it. Just as he was about to dismiss the noise, A sudden rustling from the underbrush nearby made him spin around. With the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, his heart raced as he scanned the area. What could have been causing it? As suddenly as the howl had been made, it suddenly went quiet. Nathan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He convinced himself to stay sharp while adjusting his gear. He told himself that nothing was out there but him and the forest. But he was so wrong. As night fully descended, the forest transformed into a realm of shadows and whispers. The moon, now hidden by thick clouds, provided only minimal light, casting a faded gloom over the landscape. Nathan went back to his makeshift base. His senses heightened, every sound amplified in the stillness of the night. He kept a vigilant watch, his flashlight ready for any sign of movement. Despite fatigue beginning to set in, the unease kept him alert, refusing to let his guard down. Around midnight, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and sending shivers down his spine. He looked up, trying to pinpoint the source of the disturbance, but the fog had thickened, swallowing the forest in a blanket of white. His mind raced, recalling Chief Daniel's warnings about unusual animal activity and the recent disappearances. And then it happened. A low, deep growl resonated through the trees. Nathan froze, every instinct telling him to run, but his feet remained rooted to the spot. The growling grew louder and closer, with a menacing presence seeming to surround him. And then, things got worse. His flashlight flickered, casting irregular beams that danced across the trees but revealed nothing substantial. "Hello?" he called out, his voice trembling despite his efforts to keep it steady. "Is someone there?" But nobody responded. It was just the deafening silence and the growl that seemed to mock his call for help. Seeing this, Nathan tried to rationalize the sound. He thought that it was another ranger or an animal, but the unease persisted. He had an unshakable feeling that something was watching him, and he was not wrong. Minutes felt like hours. As he stood there, the growling faded into the distance, replaced by an eerie calm. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to relax. Was it all over? As he took some coffee, trying to stay awake, the fog seemed to thicken even more, making it impossible for him to see anything beyond a few feet. As the first light of dawn began to break, he felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion wash over him. The horrors of the night were fading, replaced by the promise of a new day. He packed up his gear, the tension in his body slowly easing as the daylight banished the shadows. Chief Daniels was waiting for him as Nathan returned to the ranger station. The chief had an expression of a blend of concern and curiosity. Daniel asked Nathan to take a seat and asked him how his first patrol had been. In response, Nathan admitted that it was unsettling as he sank into the chair. He reported that he had heard noises and growls that didn't sound like any animal he was familiar with. Hearing this, the chief nodded thoughtfully and claimed that they had heard similar reports. Knowing that this was just the beginning, the chief urged Nathan to keep his eyes peeled and report anything unusual he would encounter. To Nathan, the forest held secrets, and he was now a part of them, whether he liked it or not. As he left the ranger station, the tall pines seemed to watch him, their shadows lengthening in the morning light. The experience of the first night did not leave his mind. It was a haunting reminder of the unknown dangers that lay ahead. Whatever was out there, it was watching, waiting for his next move. The call to duty had plunged Nathan into darkness, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Mount Hood was hiding something far more sinister than he had ever imagined. Having spent the night restless, the shadows and eerie sounds of the forest lingering in his mind, Nathan decided to try another approach. Determined to shake off the unease, he decided to start his patrol early, hoping that some daylight would offer some comfort. But nothing could prepare him for what he was about to encounter. Devoured flesh. It was during one of his patrols that he decided to take a break after a long search for what was causing the reported cases of people disappearing. He took a bite of his granola bar, enjoying the brief moment. As he reached for his water bottle, a sudden movement caught his eye. Across the clearing, partially hidden by the dense underbrush, lay a deer carcass. Nathan's heart skipped a beat. As he approached cautiously, the morning light revealed the dead animal. The limbs of the deer were horrifyingly twisted, and the flesh had been torn with a ferocity that no natural predator could master. His flashlight, which he always carried despite the daylight, flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around the mutilated remains of the animal. The sight was unlike anything he had ever seen, even in his years as a ranger. For this reason, he radioed Chief Daniels with a tense voice, telling him that he needed to see the scene. After revealing his location, Chief Daniels paused before responding. Daniels told Nathan to stay put while he sent someone to check it out. As he waited, the forests around Nathan felt suddenly oppressive. The air was thick with an unspoken danger. Despite this, Nathan took a step closer to the carcass. Upon examining the wounds more closely, he noticed that the tearing was methodical, almost deliberate, as if the predator had a specific purpose. What predator could have done this? As he examined the dead deer closely, he heard a heavy breathing sound coming from the dense underbrush behind him. This caught him by surprise, making his heart race. His eyes scanned the darkness, trying to locate the source of the sound. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The usual sounds of wildlife were absent. Being a trained ranger, he knew that something was wrong. Other animals only went quiet in the presence of a more dangerous predator that they did not want to mess with. Noticing how everything went quiet, he knew that something dangerous was close by. Chief Daniels' voice spoke through the radio, asking Nathan if everything was okay. Nathan replied that he thought so, but admitted he had heard something. His voice, however, gave away his fear. Knowing that he was not alone, Nathan turned around, shining his flashlight into the trees, where the light cast long, shaky shadows. For a moment, there was nothing but the rustling of leaves. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a shadow darting quickly between the trees. This made his heart pound even faster, as he did not know what he was dealing with. And judging by the nature of the dead deer, Nathan did not want to end up like that. Chief Daniels' voice came through again, asking if he had seen anything. Nathan explained that he had seen a shadow move, though it was hard to describe, and admitted something didn't feel right. Chief Daniels told him to stay calm and promised that backup was on its way. But would Nathan survive long enough? Hearing the chief's assurance, Nathan nodded, even though the chief couldn't see him. The forest felt more threatening with every sound. Every rustle of leaves or the snap of a twig made Nathan more anxious. Taking a deep breath, he reminded himself to stay focused on the job, since it was important to document the scene, not only for the records, but also to understand what was happening. For this reason, he started taking pictures of the carcass. With his flashlight flickering over and over before it stabilized, the unsteady light made it hard to see clearly, but Nathan worked to capture every detail. The wounds on the carcass were too clean and deep to be caused by any known predator in the area. Suddenly, the heavy breathing returned. This time, it was louder and closer. Nathan's instinct screamed at him to run, but he forced himself to stay still, gripping his flashlight tightly. The sound was accompanied by a low, guttural growl that resonated through the trees. It was so deep that Nathan felt it vibrating in his chest. Chief Daniels' voice broke through the tense silence, calling out to Nathan over the radio. Concerned, the chief asked if everything was all right. Nathan replied hesitantly that something was not right, his voice low as he whispered, unsure of what was lurking in the darkness, taunting him. Before Chief Daniels could respond, a massive shadow appeared just at the edge of the flashlight's beam. The figure was enormous, its shape partly hidden by thick foliage. Its sheer size and unsettling movement sent a chill down Nathan's spine. He froze, fear locking his body in place. Managing to speak, Nathan told Daniels there was something out there. Daniels took a sharp breath and ordered Nathan to return to the station immediately, promising to send backup. Nathan stammered, saying he couldn't move. The creature was watching him. Daniels insisted he stay calm and remain where he was until help arrived. Minutes felt like hours as Nathan stood frozen in fear. The presence of the unknown creature scared him. Its heavy breathing and low growls filled the night air, creating an uncomfortable environment for Nathan. Suddenly, the flashlight died, and Nathan was in complete darkness. Panic threatened to take over, but Nathan steadied his breathing, trying to stay calm. As confident as he wanted to be, Nathan felt its gaze on him, like a predator watching its prey getting ready to attack. As he stayed there, not knowing what to do, Daniel's voice spoke through the radio, asking if Nathan was still there. Nathan responded shakily, describing the creature as something unlike anything he'd ever seen. Daniels urged him to stay hidden and keep the radio on as backup was sent to his location. Nathan pressed himself against a tree, hoping to remain unnoticed. Every sound in the forest heightened his fear. The rustling underbrush, the distant cries of birds, the creature's heavy breathing and occasional growls echoed in the darkness, a terrifying reminder of the danger nearby, ready to attack him any time and leave nasty scars on him, if not kill him. Finally, the sound of car engines cut through the tension, followed by the shouts of approaching rangers. Hearing this, Nathan felt relieved, but it didn't last. The creature let out a loud roar that seemed to shake the ground itself. The rangers arrived, their flashlights sweeping the forest, but the creature had vanished. Only the mangled remains of a deer and an overwhelming sense of dread remained. Chief Daniels approached Nathan, his face full of concern. Nathan assured him he was all right, but the words carried a chilling truth. Whatever that creature was, it was real. While Nathan survived the dangerous encounter, this is not the only time Bigfoot has become violent. Rangers' violent encounters. According to a report from PNW Bigfoot Search, a park ranger detailed several strange incidents and a violent encounter near Mount Hood while working for the U.S. Forestry Service, USFS. Over 4 years, the ranger experienced 4 unusual events that raised many questions about the area. The first incident took place on January 17, 2020. While working in the area, the ranger reported hearing wood knocks and whistles and feeling an unsettling sensation of being watched. Though no creature was seen, the experience left a lasting impression, but that was not the end of it. The second incident happened in 2018. The ranger and 3 other USFS employees spotted 3 large, hairy, bipedal creatures walking along a ridge about half a mile away. 2 appeared to be adults, and 1 was clearly a juvenile. When the beings noticed the group, the tallest among them let out a deep, resonant yell that could be felt in the ranger's chest, even from that distance. The creatures crouched down and vanished from sight. Upon reaching the area, the group found no trace of the beings but encountered a strong, skunky, rotting meat odor. Nearly a year later, the third incident occurred near a lake in the same area. The ranger discovered footprints and strange tree formations. Some trees were arranged in an X or teepee-like structure, while others were found upside down with roots sticking into the air. Bent trees formed arches leading to these structures, as if guiding something along an easy path through the woods. The fourth and most violent encounter took place in 2020, during a camping trip with a close friend to celebrate retirement. Snow was about 2 feet deep, and the pair had to trek on foot from a nearby logging road. Initially, they thought a bear was nearby and fired a warning shot from a shotgun to scare it off. However, the forest fell eerily silent for the rest of the day. That night, their camp was attacked with rocks and massive tree branches, some nearly 3 feet in diameter. These objects landed just outside the campfire's light, about 10 feet from their tents. Throughout the night, they heard strange whoops, screams, and chatter. Sometimes the sounds came from a distance. Other times they seemed alarmingly close. The pair stayed by the fire all night, holding firearms for safety, and left as soon as daylight broke. Reflecting on the events, the ranger believed their weapons might have been the only reason they made it home safely. The report also mentioned that many others in the area had experienced similar encounters, but were discouraged from speaking about them publicly. The ranger expressed concern that these incidents and cases of missing persons in the region could be connected to Sasquatch activity. But how violent can Bigfoot really be? Bigfoot kills. For a long time, strange things have been happening in Alaska. Mysterious disappearances and horrifying deaths created a chilling atmosphere. Whispers of a strange creature circulated through the land, and the fear it caused became so intense that an entire Alaskan village was abandoned. Portlock, once a thriving settlement, was left to crumble into a ghost town. All this was pointed to angry Bigfoot activity. This quiet village by the sea seemed peaceful, but its history was anything but ordinary. For centuries, people tried to live there due to its abundance, but the area was abandoned not once, not twice, but 4 times. Portlock's story stands out from other ghost towns across America, not just because of its haunted past, but because it felt cursed. In 1931, a logger named Andrew Kamluck decided to venture deep into the forest, ignoring the long-standing caution to stay near the edges. When he didn't return, his friends organized a search party. What they found sent shockwaves throughout the community. Kamluck's body was discovered in a horrific state. His head had been crushed by his own sled, a sled so heavy no human could have moved it alone. Nearby, his sled dogs lay shredded, and the sled itself had been flung far from the scene. The gruesome discovery left the search party speechless. The brutality of the attack raised a chilling question. What kind of creature could possess such strength and savagery? Kamluck's death was a stark reminder of the unseen predator lurking in the forest. The once distant threat felt closer than ever. The town was gripped by fear, but it wasn't long before another terrifying encounter took place. Tom Larson, another resident, ventured out to the shore to chop wood for fish traps. As he worked, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A massive, hairy creature standing upright on the beach. It was too large and animalistic to be human, yet its eyes radiated an unsettling intelligence. Feeling both fear and an odd compulsion, Larson hurried home to grab his rifle. When he returned to the beach, he aimed at the creature, ready to shoot. But as he locked eyes with it, an unexplainable paralysis overtook him. He couldn't pull the trigger. The creature stared him down for a moment before retreating slowly into the forest, leaving Larson shaken and deeply unnerved. Though Larson's encounter ended without violence, it solidified the town's fears. The Nantinak was no longer just a story. It was real, and it was growing bolder. No longer content with stalking the forests, it had begun targeting humans directly.